I've done this work together with Yoram, Chisik, who is in the audience, and with my PhD supervisor, Manfred. So first of all, I would like to give a bit of background and motivation why we conducted those 8 workshops, as well as the procedure of them. And afterwards, I would like to give you some insights of what we could learn about anticipated play experience of children. So, actually my PhD is centered around the topic of child-centered game development. So, I've tried to come up with approaches to work with large groups of children, and therefore I combined approaches from user-centered design, participatory design, and also pedagogical principles. At last year's ACE conference, the organizers were seeking for workshop kits to run workshops with children around the topic of entertainment. So I thought, well, it would be a good idea to come up with a workshop kit to run game ideation workshops with children. So to give them really an active role in the game development process. So what I did was I combined 2 of my approaches from the large pool I had, and those were the game progress storyboards and the creative low fidelity prototypes. And I've put together a guideline and I've submitted that to ACE, and what we ended up was then organizing workshops around the world. Maybe a little bit on the procedure first. So what we do typically in those workshops is that we introduce a game topic. We want the children to brainstorm game ideas. In that case, for the workshops, it was that we wanted them to brainstorm around favorite places in town to come up with a game that children could play when visiting the town during sightseeing. After having introduced the game topic, we asked the children to build groups of 4 to 6 children and brainstorm some first game ideas and then select one game idea they want to pursue. For that specific game idea, we asked them to make a so-called game progress storyboard, so to outline one scene of the game and to come up with all the details, what they think is important in that game. After having done this, they get a whole bunch of creative materials like Play-Doh, Play Mice, Lego, colored papers, colored pens, glue, scissors, and so on, and they can build a tangible prototype of their game idea. This helps them to kind of play around with the game, and also then in the last step to present their game idea in a video to the game designers. And what we record are so-called video snippets where the children explain what their game idea is about and what makes it so special to them. Well, Yoram has a quite good network, and he looked around in his network to find volunteers that would organize some of these workshops before the actual conference would take place. And we found as well as researchers, as some industry partners that were voluntarily wanting to organize these workshops, because we didn't have money to give them to run those workshops, to buy all the materials, so we were really dependent on that people wanted to try out what I have suggested that might be a nice activity for kids to participate in game design. So we ended up that we conducted 7 pre-conference workshops. One was done by me in Freilassing, Germany. We had another one done by Yoram in Funchal, Madeira. We had one done in Kingston, Canada. We had 2 in Brazil, in Porto Alegre and Sao Paulo. We had another one in Nairobi, Kenya. The last one before the conference happened in Lahore, Pakistan. There was even one announced in Japan, but unfortunately the organizer got sick and we had to cancel that one. And then we had a pretty large workshop during the conference in Enschede. So what happened was that the organizers recruited from groups of 10 children up to the workshop at the conference where we had 76 children, which was really an amazing size, but which meant also that we had to come up with a lot of volunteers that would work with the children. And for me, it was really amazing to see that from the University of Twente that there were so many students kind of volunteering to run that workshop and work with the kids on that topic. After that workshop, we had collected 2 hours of video snippets, and Yoram had a great idea and said, well, we should do something with that. So during the conference, we organized a game jam with 4 game design students, and basically what we did was we provided them with the 2 hours of material. So before I tell you what happened, I would like to show you a few snippets out of the 2 hours to kind of give you a better impression what the videos looked like. So the first video we can see, there is not many, there's not much interaction happening with the game. The kids were basically telling the story, and what the organizers did with subtitles and translated it to English. Whereas here in this workshop you can see that the children were really pointing towards the different game elements they have designed and were moving them around, like you can see here. What they did, they told the story, they told the interaction, they pointed out what was important for them. What we recognized when we recorded the videos, that at some point it was necessary to provide notes, because otherwise the game designers would have missed substantial contextual information. So like in this case, that Madeira consists out of a lot of different islands. For some of the workshops, like the ones in Brazil, it was not so easy to buy all the equipment or to get money, but still they wanted to run the workshops. So what happened was that the children were telling what the game idea was about, and some other children were enacting the game. So it was more like a theater, so that the kids were really playing the game and not playing around. So we provided those 2 hours of videos to these 4 students here, and they were really overwhelmed. They looked at all the videos and they said, wow, great, we had a hard time picking things and coming up with an idea based on what they had brainstormed, because they had so many ideas. So they were successful. Within 1.5 days, they created a little game that could be played by the conference participants. But this made us kind of keen to look inside in a more structured way what we can find in or behind the games. So that was also the motivation for us to look into player experience. So what the children were interacting with in the game and what they were telling around the experience they had while playing. So for the player experience, we know from Shell that player experience results from the interaction with game elements, but this is not all. In particular, the imagined player experience is the reason for people to play games. So everyone who builds up expectations, and those are kind of why we want to play a game or not. And that we know from user experience research, that the act of anticipating an experience resulting from the expectations happens really before you actually use the game, play the game, or have the actual experience. And that these expectations can positively as well as negatively influence your actual experience. So if your expectations are met, you have positive experiences while playing the game. If not, you experience it more likely as negative and might not want to continue playing on the game. We know that play experience is now typically investigated during or after playing a game, so we have a bunch of approaches that tell us how we can improve and optimize play experience in the game design, but they do not really address so far the anticipated play experience. So what we did, we focused really on what can we find out in those videos, what children anticipate in terms of important game elements or playful experiences. And therefore we performed a first video analysis of the content. So a little bit of what we had found out. With the topic content analysis, Yoram and me annotated a total of 370 annotations for 60 minutes. So we did only annotate half of the videos because this was already very exhausting. We annotated game elements because we know that they the interaction with the game elements kind of builds up the player experience. Therefore, we assigned the game elements to the lenses of game design from Chisik, who really gives quite a nice framework with his 100 lenses to kind of let you know what is important when you design a game. And on the other hand, when we observed playful experiences, we assigned those to the playful experience categories of Korhonen et al. But what I really want to point out is our aim was not to annotate every detail in the videos, but we wanted to kind of get a nice overview of what is important to the kids. And in that stage we also did not take a look at the cultural differences, and we were not aiming to generalize our findings. That is also the reason why I will highlight now only a few of the findings, because it's not about the findings itself, it's about the process, and if we can find out something about the anticipated play experience. So, some selected findings. For example, we had most of the annotations around the lens of actions, where the children really with a lot of detail explained how they want to interact with the characters, even some explaining that when playing the game on the touchpad, swiping up means the character moves up. So really from very detailed to very abstract, but also how they want to interact with the game elements next to the character. Then we had a lot of annotations around the lens of story. So for our game topic, which investigated favorite places in town, it was quite interesting to see how the children really stressed the story of the character, about the journey the character makes in the city to visit those different places, and again, of course, how he interacts them with the different elements. We also learned a lot about what goals do the children see that such a game has, and how they want to experience completion, so when they completed something. So they told us a lot how they want to playfully learn and explore the game world, but not only the game world, but also play mini games and also do interaction in the real world outside to maybe solve riddles in the game. So we learned really a lot about what they want to do and which goals they want to achieve. In terms of lens of challenge and experience challenge, they really told us how they want to be challenged, for example, by increasing difficulty, avoiding obstacles, and so on. So we really got kind of pointed out, like, we want to be challenged. We do not only want to learn things in the game, but we also want to have fun in it. There are many more insights in the paper, but as I said, this should be just exemplary to point out what we learned when we annotated this in the videos. So I have 4 takeaway messages for you. The first one is that regarding anticipations and expectations. So typically when game designers design games for children, what happens is that they try to emphasize with children and anticipate their user experiences. Which is not easy, because we know children have quite different skills. Children nowadays are not like us when we were children, so game designers most of the time do the best, and that is also one of the reasons why I started my PhD. So what I can say is, in terms of anticipation and expectations of children, it's definitely worth to investigate which game elements are important for them, how they want to interact with them, and especially what they want to experience. The second thing was, how can we capture those anticipated experiences? Well, the game idea workshops we run were really a nice chance to do that, because the children could really actively participate, they could build a prototype, they could play around with it, they could really experience it and not just make it up in mind and tell you the story, but really try it out. And by analyzing those videos afterwards, we really gained insight on what is important for them in terms of anticipated play experience. My third takeaway message is, yes, we found that pre-experience matters. We know that already from user experience research, and we also found that in our findings, so that the anticipated play experience is greatly influenced by their previous experiences of the children, meaning the kinds of games they are playing. We observed a clear divide between the 8 to 12 and 12 to 14 years old children. So in the German-speaking part of Europe, there is an entertainment software regulation body called USK, and they judge games and say what is the appropriate age range for children for people to play that game. And we could really observe that they kind of recommend games for 8 to 12 years old which deal with fantasy, and also the game ideas that we analyzed dealt a lot with fantasy, whereas the 12 to 14 years old more wanted it to be with real world and transferring it, so they were more interested into riddles being solved outside and just doing that a little bit in the game. So we really could see also in the game ideas that, again, pre-experience is very, very important to learn from. And the last takeaway message is that our video analysis approach worked out fine for our first analysis, but handling those 100 lenses was not easy, and taking another more than 20 categories, playful experience categories from Kohanen didn't make it easier. So for a first annotation, just trying to understand if those videos really can capture and tell you something about anticipated play experience, we were happy and satisfied, but we are currently, or have already investigated in the last month, some other approaches that I'm happy to present in a month at the ACE conference. So that's it, what I wanted to kind of share my experiences with you. Now it's time for your questions.